Hello, this is Tim Law with Playing It Forward Coaching, encouraging your self-reliance. If you develop a marketable skill, chase that skill with a solid work ethic, develop people and communication skills. You'll be amazed at what you can accomplish in this country. I have a very special guest with me today, a guy I met many years ago. We're finally reconnecting. Met him on the wrestling mats about 4 decades ago. It's just incredible where the time's gone. And anyway, he has a very special story to share here. A gentleman named Scott Key, who wrestled for Maine-Endwell up there back in the 80s. So Scott, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, and looking forward to this.
Thank you, Tim. Well, was born missing hands and feet. It was due to a thalidomide incident. My mother had taken just one pill. And I don't know if you remember what thalidomide was, but back in the 50s, it was used in Europe to prevent morning sickness in pregnant women. But they realized it caused birth defects like mine, so they quit using it for that. But it was still around in the 60s being used similar to Valium. And someone had offered my mother one when she was upset at one point in time. Without realizing she was pregnant, she took it, and that's what caused my birth defect. I grew up in the Binghamton, Endicott, Endwell area, the Broome County area, my whole life. And, I was lucky enough to have a mother and a family that just made a decision that I was going to grow up to live a life just like everybody else. So when chores got handed out, I had chores handed out to me too. And when butt whoopings were deserved, my butt got whooped too,
Yeah. Well, and I remember you wrestling. You actually wrestled one of our guys from Hancock when I was coaching up there, a guy named Joe Marin, and and you beat him. And so tell us a little bit about your wrestling, Scott, because you were amazing as far as what you could do on the mat. Very, very impressive.
Well, my first taste of wrestling actually came from my aunt and uncle's front yard in Iowa, Waterloo, Iowa. That's the town my mother was originally from. Her brother lived there. And all of my cousins, both her brother's children and her sister's children, were wrestlers. So when we were out there during the summer, it would be inevitable that I was getting my butt kicked by some older kid, just as being used as a wrestling dummy, just like everybody else. And I guess that's where I got the bug. I started wrestling off at a tournament, an open tournament at Maine-Endwell High School. And I was terrible. I beat the guy, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And after that, I joined the wrestling team in junior high. Wrestled 2 years in junior high for Maine-Endwell. And by the time I got to senior high, I had the fortune of being put on a team that was very lacking in the upper class weights. So I didn't even have to wrestle off to get onto varsity my first year. I covered 167, 177, and heavyweight throughout my first year. After the first year wrestling, and my first year wrestling varsity was that I got my butt kicked, more than I kicked butt. Let's just put it that way. I think I had 9 wins and 13 losses or something like that. But the following summer, one of the local families, the Gumbel family, which was really involved in wrestling.
Yeah, I know Ricky. I know Ricky really well. Great group of people.
Rick started taking us around to summer tournaments. Well, he actually became my junior high coach the second year of junior high. So going into my sophomore year, the summer between freshman and sophomore, he started getting a group of us together and taking us to summer tournaments, freestyle, Greco-Roman. And a couple of those tournaments were the qualifiers for the junior national tournament and the qualifiers for the Empire State Games. And in that summer, I took first in Greco-Roman wrestling, 5th in freestyle, and earned a spot on the junior national team to go out to Iowa. I also wrestled the Empire State Games. qualified to be in the Empire State Games as well that summer.
Yeah. Well, Scott, tell us a little bit about obviously not having, the limbs and everything is certainly a disadvantage, but obviously, and I had said this to, my guys, I said, wrestling somebody like you would not be easy because the usual places where you try to, tie up the guy or whatever with you, that it just wasn't there. So what was your strategy as far as how you managed to, become as good a wrestler as you were?
Oh, easy. Don't get pinned. No, I was young. I don't know if I had a strategy for anything at that point in my life. I work hard. That was it. Fred Marcello, an awesome coach, had no qualms about putting the guy with no hands and feet onto his varsity lineup. None at all. Worked with me along with Lee Cobb, who was my wrestling partner throughout all of junior high and all of high school. When coach was showing us moves, Lee was the guy helping me figure out how I was going to make it my move.
Sure.
Freddie had a move he developed in college, and he called the Marcello roll. And that was my bread and butter. So I use that roll all the time. It was almost like a Peterson roll, but it had an elevator with the elbow and a knee through there.
Okay.
And anyhow, so my strategy was, everybody, when I went out there, they did two things. The first thing was to try and shove my head into the mat or push me backwards. And so through like December, January, February, every year, I had black eyes all the time from people trying to push me backwards. So just to maintain a low center of gravity, which I already started off at, and then try not to get trapped underneath them if I'm taking a shot, and try not to get bowled over. And when people would push into me, and I would often bait them to push into me by quick jerking into them and wait for them to push back. And as soon as they pushed back, I would turn it into a headlock and take them down that way. So on the feet, that was my strategy.
Sure. And you were talking about some of the guys, Coach Marcello, a great guy, and the other ones that you were involved with. What were some of the life lessons, Scott, that you felt that wrestling provided for you? Obviously, it's a tough enough sport as it is, as anybody who's been involved with it, as you have been, and then you have to have some of your challenges, as far as your limbs and everything are concerned. What were some of the life lessons you learned?
Well, right off the bat, I think the thing that I learned that stuck with me my entire life, I kind of put a little twist on it though. I remember Coach Marcello saying that you don't have to be the best wrestler on the mat. You have to be the best conditioned wrestler on the mat. Because even the best wrestler, if they're running out of gas in the third period and you're not, you're at an advantage all of a sudden.
Sure.
So what that meant to me later in life is be prepared. Plan ahead, put the time in, make sure you got yourself set up. Don't go in just on a hope and a prayer. Know that you put your time into it and you're ready to go. Sure.
And do you have any advice for, let's say, teens, young adults, or whatever, that regarding whether it's a sport, wrestling, or any sport, or just life in general?
Well, I think something I've been thinking about a lot lately is that we often view ourselves completely different than the way the world views us. And we are always our own worst critic. And I think if you can't let that little voice of doubt inside rule the day. You have to push past that and keep going. And throughout my life, whether it was wrestling, whether it was anything else I've accomplished, I always set my goals for a little higher than I think I can achieve. And I'm never disappointed if I can't reach them, but I always go farther than I anticipated I would. My goal back in wrestling was to be state champion, just like everybody else on the team.
Sure.
But that didn't happen in school. I kept losing the qualifiers. I never made it to the state tournament, but I got a lot farther in those qualifiers than your average person did. I was always on the podium at those qualifiers, and I know there was a lot of people that were there that weren't.
Sure.
So, push for more than you think you can do. Be happy with what you can accomplish, especially if you didn't leave anything behind.
Right.
You did everything you could.
Yeah, very, very, very well said, Scott. This has been fantastic. I super appreciate it. Any last second thoughts? And can you stick around after we close off the recording here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Not really. It's life. We only get one shot at this. There's no second right on this. And so for me, when I was very young, a teenager, I was told by a doctor that I trusted that I wasn't going to have a quality of life after a 40. So I lived my life like 40 was the number. And by the time I got out of high school, as far as I was concerned, I lived half my life already, and I kept moving on from one thing to another. I kept setting new dreams. I would accomplish them and move on to the next one. And thanks to that, I never had I don't have any retirement account now because I jumped from one thing to the next. But I've met so many people, and the doors have been opened in so many ways for me in life. And I've been able to accomplish things that I wanted to accomplish since I was a child. I learned how to play guitar. A guy here in Pennsylvania taught me how to play guitar using 2 fingers, a shoehorn, and a Velcro strap to hold the pick. And I laid it on my lap like Jeff Healy. If you know who he is, your age is showing. And I learned to make cheater chords. And if you're interested in seeing any of that, you can YouTube me at Scott Key and the Stolen Band. There's a couple of news articles on the band that I had back then.
Great. It'll be something to look forward to there. Well, Scott, this has been great. Please stick around for a minute here. We'll chat it up, and I'll be getting this out pretty soon here, sir.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you.